So there's an example of Jeff Bezos getting
Uh-huh.
hacked through
Uh-huh.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
This was
That's crazy.
a few years ago,
Yeah.
and he got an MP4 file from um, or allegedly got an MP4 file from the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia,
Right.
and then through that they were able to get into his phone. So, like, this is not a theoretical threat. This is already
Right. Right.
happening
That
out
is
in the
interesting.
world.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of John Has Trust Issues. Today I have with me as a guest, and I'm honored to have him here as a guest. We have Willy Vasquez, who is a security research. Hey Willy, he's a security researcher over at the University of Texas, and I am super thrilled to have a conversation with him today about just generally speaking what is entailed with security research, what is the connection between the research that he does or that he does with his cohorts and colleagues around just the general world of security, the world of zero trust in particular, and just really how it impacts positively our industry. So, with that said, welcome, Willie. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
as you know the show, right? You've seen a couple of my episodes now, probably, and it's like the first thing I want to ask is, what's Willie's trust issue? What do you have going on over there?
Yeah. So my trust issue mostly comes from my cat. So, you know, cats. I have two cats. One of them is a little 10-month-old. He's very cute and very playful, and sometimes he'll lie back on his back and look very welcoming and be like, "Oh, come over here and pet my belly," and I'll go over there. But he got me the first few times, and just like go to pet the belly, and then he just grabs, and so that's where my trust issue comes from.
Your trust issue comes from your cat. I love it. Yeah, I have a cat too,
Yes.
and yeah, I don't know if your cat does this, but my cat once in a while when she comes around, right? Yeah, well, if she comes first, she comes out of her whatever hole she's hiding in, right? And she comes out and she starts doing her purring thing, and rubs up against my ankles, and then I'm like, okay, I give you a scratch on the head or whatever. And if I stop paying attention to her, she comes out and bites me on the ankle. I was like, what's that all about?
Yes, yeah, I get that too.
She's like, I'm not done with you, human. Come back. Anyway, Willie, thank you for being on John Has Trust Issues. I really appreciate that. Again, I've said that. Um, so I want to get started with really asking you, getting to the meat of what you do, and as a security researcher, right? What is it that what is it that drives you? What is it that maybe walk us through a little bit of the process. I talk to a lot of people who are practitioners in the field, but I now on the research side, a lot of that research comes out and is either used by nefarious users to attack. Some of it maybe they've done the research themselves and they figured out vulnerabilities. But walk us through what you do in particular and how that work that you do positively impacts the industry and later on down the road the practitioners that are trying to protect their kingdoms.
Yeah, sure. So my as a security researcher, and as a part of my PhD work, I'm trying to find vulnerabilities before attackers do, and also
Hmm.
come up with new tools to find these vulnerabilities, and also come up with defenses for it, for any issues that we find.
Right.
So my work revolves around video codec security.
Hmm.
So right now we're in the platform that we're chatting on.
Hmm.
It's taking each individual frame and compressing it to
Hmm.
store this file. And the this compressed video, whenever you want to play it back,
Yep.
we all have dedicated software, firmware, hardware,
Hmm.
often as part of a GPUs
Yep.
that take the compressed bit streams and produce each individual frame.
Yep.
So I'm working in finding vulnerabilities in this decoding pipeline and
Sure.
also trying to defend from vulnerabilities there.
Hmm.
Why this is important is that um, as you're surfing the web, you may
Yeah.
encounter ads, you may watch videos on
Yeah.
random websites, and if there's any vulnerability in this pipeline, you may end up getting hacked without you even realizing it.
Yeah.
Or furthermore, someone could just send you a video through some messaging
Yeah.
platform, and your phone, in trying to be helpful, will automatically produce a thumbnail.
Yeah.
And this thumbnail generation is
Yeah.
the exact same video decoding process,
Right.
and you may end up getting hacked without you even realizing it. In fact, most like these vulnerabilities are quite complex, and they're used. So there's an example of Jeff Bezos getting
Uh-huh.
hacked through
Uh-huh.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
This was
That's
a
crazy.
few years ago,
Yeah.
and he got an MP4 file from um, or allegedly got an MP4 file from the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia,
Right.
and then through that they were able to get into his phone. So, like, this is not a theoretical threat. This is already
Right. Right.
happening
That
out
is
in the
interesting.
world.
Yeah, and with so
So,
many millions of us, I mean, even my parents, who are aging, they're sharing videos all the time on WhatsApp and whatever, right? So this is an interesting concept, right? So how do we protect ourselves?
so the most immediate thing that you can do is disable, like, messages from strangers.
Hmm.
So Apple has a lockdown mode. I'm not familiar with other platforms. Inside of browsers, disabling auto playing of videos. Um, and
Click, click,
part
click.
of the work that I'm doing,
I'm doing this while you talk.
part of the work that I'm doing is that we're trying to rethink the uh, model of security of random videos on the internet.
Sure.
So, alongside finding vulnerabilities, I'm also working on the defensive side of things uh, by using this tool called RLBox.
Hmm.
And RLBox enables software fault isolation.
Okay.
And what that means is that inside of Firefox, you have a separate image parser, font parser, video parser, and these are third-party libraries.
Sure.
So going into the concept of zero trust, right?
Hmm.
You're using these third-party libraries.
Yep.
The code may have vulnerabilities in it
Yep.
or not. You're not always sure. And so what RLBox allows you to
Hmm.
do is sandbox the individual library
Sure.
so that any vulnerabilities found in each of those, if they try to get
Sure.
exploited, they will be contained
Sure.
and won't impact your browser, your
Right.
entire
Right.
machine.
Right. So you isolate all of that malware and isolate the threat, which is interesting. And I'm glad you brought up zero trust because it's in my world, in the identity and authorization world specifically, right? We do make a lot of reference to zero trust in the different products, in the way that we propose customers they protect their networks, that they protect. And of course, concept one of the tenets of zero trust is that these threats are persistent and they're everywhere, right? And the other, and I think this resonates with your research, is that you assume that you're either already breached or you're a breach is imminent, right? It's one of those aspects of zero trust, right? And that really the point is to compel that protection is in place and that you don't assume that everything is safe and secure in what we do on the computing platforms that we use. But one question in that regard is, number one is, if you can get into, what are your thoughts on zero trust and what does zero trust mean to you, from your perspective, of course, and what do you see as the connection for the video codec vulnerability research that you're doing and part of the what we call the device security posture, and how that relates to the bigger zero trust aspect of protecting ourselves and our networks.
Yeah.
I know
So
that's a loaded question, so apologies for that.
yeah. No, it's good. It's good. So what zero trust means to me is um, an evolution of trust but verify.
Mm-hmm.
This is and so a lot of my background is in the world of cryptography,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the concepts or one of the key ideas in cryptography is zero knowledge proofs,
Mm-hmm.
where I can convince you that some statement is true without revealing to you any secret related to this statement. And you can kind of think of signatures as a
Mm-hmm.
type of zero knowledge proof, where I'm convincing you that this message came from me,
Yep.
but I'm not revealing my secret key to you in
Yep.
any way. There's some public key that gets tied to it. Um, so when I think zero trust, I think this constant verification, and I'm excited for how cryptography will fit in
Mm-hmm.
to new zero trust systems
Yep.
in the future. For example, I've worked previously in the world of verifiable computing,
Mm-hmm.
where you send your data off to the cloud
Mm-hmm.
and you get some response back. And
Mm-hmm.
the either in the cloud the data is too big for you to
Mm-hmm.
try to rerun
Yep.
everything locally, or the
Yep.
computation is too complex.
Yep.
But you can get a cryptographic proof
Yep.
that hey, this answer actually did come from this data and for
Yep.
this functionality
Yep.
you uh, that you asked to run.
Yep.
Uh, how how I think about zero trust connecting back to my work on video codecs is that we have these trusted sources of video content.
Uh-huh.
For example, videos from Netflix, right? It's like
Sure.
a set entity of videos that will come
Sure.
in. And so whenever it's coming from that trusted source, then you could run it through like this fast decoding pipeline
Mm-hmm.
inside of your GPU or your system on chip.
Right.
But if it's from randomattackerwebsite.com,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you try to decode that video inside of this isolated
Right.
sandbox environment.
Right.
Um, so that's uh, that's how I think of like zero trust in my video
Got it.
codec work.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a great explanation. So, the next question I have is now kind of that we've connected the research that you do in video codec vulnerabilities, and how we connect it to zero trust. Um, what is your view, or how do you see security practitioners? Right, there's infosec engineers that are trying to protect their digital kingdoms, right, and that they are charged with the impossible task of really, making sure that bad people don't do things from all of the different attack vectors. It's not just their local networks on in at their corporation anymore, right? It's the SaaS applications that are out there. It's the cloud infrastructure that they manage, that their organizations manage. So, how can security practitioners take advantage of all of the research and that you do, particularly, but in general, maybe you can talk about it from a general security practitioner perspective as well, which you're a part of that world, right? How can those practitioners take advantage of all of the research that you do?
It's a really good question. Uh, so I think from the a security practitioner that's also a developer. So in that context, I think there's a lot of work around supply chain, software supply chain
Mm-hmm.
security,
Mm-hmm.
um, SBOMs, VEXs,
Yep.
and I think looking at our work on software fault isolation, like
Mm-hmm.
the tool that has been written already takes any C library
Mm-hmm.
and kind of wraps it inside of
Yep.
uh, this container, this sandbox, um, and with like little to no or a little bit of performance
Sure.
degradation.
Sure.
But I think in building out the tools that uh, everyday users
Sure.
rely on, such as browsers. Adding, I guess we've already seen with the XZ
Right.
vulnerability
Right.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
XZ
Yeah.
supply chain attack,
For sure.
what what that those attacks can look like. Um,
It's the oh my goodness, this was, a trust that I put into a developer that wanted to contribute to my project, right? And all of a
yeah,
sudden now the entire internet potentially could have melted down because a lot of stuff runs on Linux, right? So
yeah, I think so. Developers consider applying our
yeah,
research um, for folks that have to manage networks.
sure.
Um, one one area that I've seen that may be related to video codecs
Hmm.
is network antivirus scanning.
Hmm.
So um, I think a while back I saw some solution that will scan any file type that gets
Hmm.
passed through the network
Hmm.
for maliciousness, and these also have complicated parsers that may try to decode videos, and
Sure.
if those are not kept up to date, there may be vulnerabilities in there, and now you're hacked like just by a video through the network.
Right.
Um,
Right.
you may have may get into those solutions. Yeah, I think a lot of my work has been in the development, the vulnerability research space. Yeah, that's such a good question about security practitioners.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks Willie for that. I mean, that's definitely I took you down into the bowels of thinking, right? Of all of the different. I mean, just like software supply chain, right? There's I think definitely in our industry. I don't think we talk about the supply chain of from the research, the vulnerability side, all the way through the practical end of the spectrum, where it's like you know some SOC team somewhere is dealing with an active, persistent threat attack, that's happening from a group somewhere because, they also found the same vulnerability that you found, right, in some video, right? And so, no, but I think it's great, right? And there's a whole bunch that goes on in that supply chain, right? So I absolutely think that it's super important. So, particularly, I do want to take you next to and let me flip the screen here. I want to take you to vulnerability, the most recent vulnerability that you discovered. Looks like there was a couple of other people on your team that work with you, maybe So, um, walk us through what that's all about. This is my first time, and for our viewers here, this is my first time that I've actually talked to somebody, and I'm pretty happy to say this, somebody who's actually uncovered a CVE at Apple scale, right? Because that's like, that's pretty huge, right? So walk us through and what that was like, the reporting aspect, as much as you can say. I know that there's, you might be covered by NDAs and things like that, but walk us through what that is like, what the response was like, and finally, you know, to the taking. And I don't know how involved you were in the actual release of the patch and all that stuff, but walk us through what that's like. As a security person, obviously, I know, I'm familiar with the end result of a CVE, right? And immediate 0-day patching and all of that fun stuff. And I'm sure a lot of my viewers are also in that world, right? So, but walk us through, what that looks like from your perspective, and how the end result shows up.
Sure. So this is I can definitely, and hearing other vulnerability researchers
Mm-hmm.
talk about how they are able to find vulnerabilities, it's often specializing in a particular niche
Mm-hmm.
area,
Mm-hmm.
um, finding a particular code pattern and finding vulnerabilities that way, or sometimes just like a bit of luck
Yeah.
in looking
Yeah.
at uh, disassembled or decompiled code. So for me, as a part of my PhD, I've been lucky enough to
Mm-hmm.
spend the past 5 years of my life just like diving really deep into the
Sure.
world of video
Mm-hmm.
codecs. And so that niche experience has allowed me to find these vulnerabilities in Apple products.
Sure.
And so uh, what that's consisted of is uh, using my tool that I've written for my
Mm-hmm.
work, H26 Forge, to generate different videos that, and then just playing them back on a bunch
Yep.
of different devices and software. And so the most recent vulnerability is this one found in iTunes.
Sure.
And then I've also found some like Apple kernel stuff, and that's
Mm-hmm.
like really wild seeing
Right.
like you just play this video on the phone and then
Yeah.
it just like shuts off.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's been able to flex a lot on my like, reverse engineering skills.
Right.
So
Right.
in Windows, using things like WinDebug,
Uh-huh.
opening things in Ghidra, um, for iPhone, um, downloading the Apple kernel and then loading that up in
Yep.
Ghidra, and then
Yep.
using a kernel debugger to like step through what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. For me, I have first, in finding these issues, I have first found a trigger that
Mm-hmm.
causes a crash or a video to display something kind of weird. So
Yep.
I should also add that video decoding is a deterministic process.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you decode the same video, expecting to get the same output.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeing a different input, a different output each time,
Mm-hmm.
then that's probably some memory leakage
Interesting.
or some information leakage that you
Sure.
can leverage for
Sure.
attacks. So um, once you find that vulnerability, you try to write up your bug bounty
Mm-hmm.
as descriptive as you can, given
Mm-hmm.
the tools that are available. You know, obviously, we don't
Yep.
have source code
Sure.
for Apple's products,
Sure.
um, but you can derive a lot from the decompiled one. And uh, Apple recently has made a really nice reporting website.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in one platform, um, and you just submit it there. And sometimes it's kind of like a black hole where
Right.
for
Right.
months on end they're like
Right.
saying we're investigating.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
um,
So
and then
how did you
eventually they'll get.
feel? How did you feel when like Forbes picked it up? Right. I mean, how did I don't know if you're some of the journalists, right, that pick up on the cybersecurity news and things like that, right? You know, how did you, number one, how did you feel about that, and number two, like, what was your reaction to it, right? I'm kind of curious about that.
I was flattered and surprised.
Uh huh.
I was not expecting this type of attention.
Right.
Um, yeah, the reporter reached out asking for a comment,
Yeah.
and then I reached out to my co-authors
Uh huh.
to figure out on how we should, what kind of comment to provide, um, and yeah, it was amazing. I think what was kind of surprising is that um, whenever I told my friends about this CVE, they were like, "Who uses iTunes on Windows?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, "Oh, I do."
There's people
uh,
out there. I mean, don't discount it. I mean, if we look at it from a consumer perspective, sure, right? But I'm sure there's people on their corporate laptops, right, that want to listen to music. I mean, they subscribe to Apple Music Plus or whatever, right? And they load. I mean, and that's the world that I live in, and the company I work for, StrongDM. That's the world where we live in, right? Where it's there's gonna be somebody on on that's accessing your sensitive infrastructure, right? That has some kind of privileged access to things, that wants to listen to music. Of course, we all do that, right? And their corporate laptop just happens to be Windows, so why not, right? So
yeah, no. So over like just hearing that Apple was issuing a CVE for this, I was
uh-huh.
very excited
Yep.
and grateful. I mean, I just reported it because
Yep.
I want to protect users,
For sure. For sure.
as you mentioned, and yeah, as a user of iTunes on Windows, I was
Yeah.
like, yes, obviously,
Yeah,
I
for
must
sure.
report it.
For sure.
Um, and then whenever it got picked up by Forbes, it was very surprising and flattering, given that uh, our other work that I felt was a little more serious, like
Mhm.
the kernel Apple kernel
Mhm.
vulnerabilities.
Yep.
I thought those may be more impactful, but I think it may be the fact that this iTunes CVE was released out on its own.
Right.
Meanwhile, our other Apple issues
Right.
were like in a collection, like other people
Hmm.
had also
Right, right.
found a bunch of issues. Yeah.
Yeah, and the latest iOS that yeah, we the was that in the dot one? I'm just curious, right? Was that in the what is it, 17.5, right? And then there was like 17.5.1 that just like came out and popped on my phone yesterday, right? Is that
Oh
where
yeah, that was because
yeah, that
no,
was
no, no. Our
okay,
our
okay.
kernel stuff was patched in December 2022.
Okay, okay. So well back, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
got it. Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
No, that one was to fix the pictures becoming undeleted.
Right, that's right. It was the
Yeah,
database issue. And that's right. That's right.
yeah.
Well, cool. I do want to let our viewers know that you and I are also connected via a Latinx and tech organization called Tequeria. So a plug for Tequeria, all of our fellow TQers that are out there, and so it's more of a career question, right? A career progression, education question. um, tell our viewers, if I want to be a security researcher, right? If I want to go spend my days doing that, right? What's the advice that Willie that you would give somebody watching today, as doing that as either part of their career or as part of their career progression, right? What would be your advice, and how? Well, number one, maybe you can get in a little bit of how you got into it, on the personal side, right? And then, what would be your advice to somebody like that?
Yeah, so how I got into it was hacking video games in middle school.
Right,
So
right,
I I played a lot of MMORPGs, and
mm-hmm.
at some point, one of my friends taught me how to hack the game.
Right,
And then I got more interested in hacking than
right,
actually playing,
right,
and so then I just dove into that rabbit hole.
right,
So that consisted of being on some forum where someone
mm-hmm.
said, "Oh, if you want to be a real hacker, you got to
Mm-hmm.
learn C++." plus plus."
Right,
And so in eighth grade, I went to Half Price Books and I bought Teach Yourself C++ plus plus in 24
right,
hours.
right, right.
And then 24 hours later, I was ready. I was leaked.
Yeah.
No, no, many years later, it was quite a process. I was always interested in math and
Mm-hmm.
puzzles. At some point in high school, I learned about websites like Hack This Site,
Mm-hmm.
which is like CTFs, but it was just individual challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent most of my free time just working through those puzzles, doing
Mm-hmm.
programming problems. And in that passion, I was able to get into MIT. And
Mm-hmm.
at MIT, I just had the opportunity to do undergrad research,
Mm-hmm.
and that also brought me to the forefront of technology.
Right,
And so, like, I was very lucky that my passion,
right,
I was able to find my passion in middle school and
right,
just like
right.
dived in and experiment. I think these days there's a lot, like, so many resources out there, like YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of incredible YouTube resources to like get you started diving in. Um, the reason why, so after doing my undergrad and my master's, the reason why I did a PhD was because I was able to just like have these like 5, 6, 7 years of my life where I can dive deep into a
Right,
particular
right,
topic and then
right,
pop back out and like look at all these contributions that I've
right,
made.
right.
Um, that's definitely not necessary. There's like
Sure.
I think the majority of security researchers
Yeah.
don't have PhDs,
Right,
but it's certainly an approach that has helped me a lot. I think review the write ups, find the right communities, and ask
right.
questions. People are always down and interested to help. Like Tequeria is
Yep.
an incredible resource.
Right.
People ask questions, and we're all sharing our
Mm-hmm.
insights
Right.
and knowledge. Um, and there's like many other discords and slacks out there
Right.
that are similar. So if you're interested in going into the world of security research, maybe find some like CVE and try to investigate like
Right.
how does this work.
Right.
Uh, do some CTFs,
Yeah.
read some CTF write-ups.
Mm-hmm.
It does take a little bit of your own uh, effort
Yep.
at the start, but there's like so many resources out there.
Right. Right. That's awesome. Thank you. So I think my last question. So what's in store for Willie? What's next for Willie?
Yeah, so I'm finishing my PhD this summer, 2024. I'm looking for security researcher opportunities in industry. If you know of any, hit me up.
Awesome.
Uh, but I want to continue protecting people from these like bugs that can like I don't know ruin people's lives.
Right.
Like I don't want that to happen.
Right.
Um, and long term, I want to keep working in the field of research.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to be a DARPA program manager
Mm-hmm.
where you have this view of the entire field of cybersecurity, and then people are sending you their crazy ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, yo, that's dope. Here's like $10
Yeah.
million. Like, let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's hack this stuff. Yeah,
Let's go. Let's get in there and tinker and figure out how it works and how we can hack it, right? I mean, that's really at the end of the day,
exactly.
right? At the end of the day. Awesome.
Yeah,
Well, Willie, thank you very much for coming on to the show, onto John Has Trust Issues. I really appreciate your time.
yeah. Thanks, John. I had a great time.
Awesome. So, thank you everybody for watching today's episode. And really, at the end of the day, what it comes down to, from a zero trust authorization perspective, what we know is that if you don't trust the device that these vulnerable videos are playing on, right? How can you guarantee that that access to your sensitive infrastructure isn't also going to follow? So that's really, tying it down to the world of zero trust and authorization. It really comes down to protecting the end devices and the entire chain, really, so that you can provide that access. So this episode was sponsored by StrongDM, the continuous zero trust authorization platform. Again, Willie, thank you very much for joining us, and everybody have a great day. Thank you. Whoa, how did I get into this little box here? John Martinez, your security barista here. Hope you enjoyed this episode of John Has Trust Issues. Make sure you like and you subscribe to the StrongDM channel to get more relevant content like interviews, like more John Has Trust Issues episodes, like product walkthroughs for StrongDM, etc. And you can see all that by subscribing and liking our content. Thank you very much.